Good morning, listeners. We are here with Colonel Mayank Chaubey. It gives me great pleasure to welcome somebody so illustrious a profile from the armed forces to our Zena family today on the Heart to Heart show. Welcome, Colonel Mayank.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sanjay ji.
Let me start with a brief introduction of Colonel Mayank Chaubey. He's a veteran, served for 3 decades in the Indian Army, specializing in armament, ammunition, and international coordination, including a distinguished tenure from 2014 to 2020 with the Ministry of External Affairs. He's also served as a director at the Sushma Swaraj Institute of Foreign Service, where he does training programs for Indian and foreign diplomats. So we can look forward to a lot of tips and tricks from the training arena today. A known geopolitical expert in national media as well as the digital world, he's a regular face on national television and various YouTube channels. He contributes to leading publications on geopolitical and military affairs. Alongside his passion lies mentoring school, college students on nation building, leadership, a true Bharatvasi who is there fighting from the front lines of the nation within the borders. His hobbies include music, philately, numismatics, which keeps him connected to art, history, and culture beyond his uniform. He also voices his opinion and analyzes on his YouTube channel, Rananiti, which focuses on defense, strategy, and geopolitics. And he concludes to say his lifelong mission remains clear: to serve Ma Bharati till his last breath. It is such a pride and honor to have you on Zena Family Show. Colonel Mayank, welcome. Did I miss anything? You want to add one other thing which is missed in the profile?
No, Sanjay ji, it's very humbling. Thank you so much for the elaborate introduction. I hope I live up to the expectation. Jai Hind. Thank you so much.
Jai Hind. Jai Hind. Let me start with a look from the outside of India. I lived abroad for almost 3 decades. And when we look at India from the outside as an expat, because you worked with foreign diplomats and training them on how to be, let's start from that angle. Bahar se dekhne se, when you look at India from the outside, what has changed in the last 2 decades? There has been massive change in the last 2 decades in this perspective, before and after. So in your opinion, where do you think that change has come? What has happened in that perspective?
Okay. If we say last 2 decades, that is 20 years.
Yes.
So 2005 till 2013, I was with the armed forces.
Okay.
And serving in the olive green. So the army is leading a sort of an insulated life. You are slightly cut off from the civilian populace. So you have your own world. You are busy training, you are busy educating or imparting education or receiving education. Once you step out of the cantonment and you meet the so-called civilian world, which is not clad in the same olive greens, then you realize as to what is going on outside the precincts of the cantonment. And this happened in the year 2014, where I had the privileged opportunity, I must say, to serve with the Ministry of External Affairs. So 2014, I stepped into that world. So the change that I see, it starts from there. In the armed forces, we generally believe that the civilians, they are not very punctual. And probably they don't give that due importance to work. And chutti and tiffin is very important to them. So this is the general belief in the armed forces. Please don't mind if anybody feels bad about it. But then that is the belief that generally we people carry. So when I reach the Ministry of External Affairs, and I find that pleasantly surprised that the people are really devoted to their work. Punctuality, yes, that bit of punctuality was lacking in a slight fashion, but not the other ministries which I had visited or seen. So the change starts there, that Prime Minister Modi takes the oath and he becomes the Prime Minister. And there is a batch of diplomats who goes and calls on the prime minister. This barely 15 days into the government, and a standard norm. A set of questions is given and answers are given, and the OTs, the officer trainees, are expected to ask those very questions, and the answers are already there on the piece of paper. So
Right.
that brief is there. Yes, please. Okay. So he is given a brief, and the answer is also tailor-made. So it's a sort of a what do you call it? A tailored interview sort of a thing which is going on, and you feel nice, and you have a cup of tea with the prime minister, and you come back. But then it was a surprise which came to me when my joint secretary, he called me up, and he said, "Colonel Saab, can you please come to the office after the OTs returned from the call?" And I said, "Sure, sir." So I hurriedly reached the office, and I find the joint secretary slightly worried. And he says that everything is now going to change. I said, "What happened?" So he said that the prime minister, he chose to ask questions extempore. He didn't refer to the brief. And the questions were pointed. They were not the usual goody-goody questions. They were probing questions, like, to which country are you being assigned? And what is the relation of that country with India? So generally the answer is that we have X billion dollars of trade with that country and so and so. But then the prime minister wanted to listen to something much deeper. And then he gave his own input that 2000 years back, there was a boat which set sail from that country, and it comes to the shores of India. And the Maharaja of Junagadh, he gives them shelter and this and that. So what came to our mind was that the prime minister was not the routine prime minister that you really expect him to be. This man meant business, and he knew what was going on and what should go on. So that changed the entire scenario. This is a pleasant change that I find which came, and this change I find is very, very helpful.
I think I completely agree with you. So coming from a place like Dubai, okay, so where it is precise, what we build gets built on time. So I think the respect for time is something that really, when I came back about 4 years ago to India, that I find is so stretchable here. So, and the integrity of, if you have promised somebody something, you deliver it to that or even more than that expectation, right? So this comes from the business community. This comes from the so-called civilians, like you said. No disrespect, but I fully agree with that point here on both tiffin and chutti. I think intense work is rest, and that's what the Bhagavad Gita says. And various Vedantic texts say that when you are so immersed in your passion, in your work, that is actually the most restful and most freeing for that matter. Freedom is something we all crave for. And in this free country, where did this chutti, tiffin, laid back attitude to work creep in? Where do you think is that genesis? Because before you answer that question, I also want to make a point on the relevance, context, and history question that Prime Minister Modi did ask the first set of people who went to meet him, because it is so important to have a larger context, right? So, coming back to my question, where do you think that crept in, or what was the lacuna in our society, where, because we've had this in the past history also, and as a geopolitical expert you would be and history is something that you would have historically gone into. Where was that gap that we allowed Mughals to enter and attack us, the British to come and attack us, and then this laziness, tiffin, and these kind of things to enter? ये दीमक जैसे होते हैं, मैं बोलती हूँ, तो वो कैसे एंटर हुआ अकॉर्डिंग टू यू?
Sandhya ji, it's a very tough question to answer, I must say that. But so far as my little knowledge goes, what happens is that when the British come to India, they come with the norm that anybody serving the government will get a sort of a immunity. So you apply for a job, and after applying for a job, your job is secured. The promotions might not be linked to your performance. You do get a report at the end of the calendar year or whatever year you may count, but then your job is secure. So a scramble for government jobs started in this country. Everybody wanted a sarkari job because the job was secure. Secondly, in those days, the job was linked to a pension. So when you retire, you get 50% of your emoluments as a pension. So getting into a government job became a sort of a necessity for everybody. They thought that this is the most well-paying opportunity that anybody can get in life. Now, what happens is that when you get something which is assured, you start taking it for granted. So we started taking this job as granted. And then we started to find that me time. That, okay, I should have some time for my tea break. I should have some time for my lunch. I should have some time for afternoon siesta also. So after lunch, when your belly is full, you feel like relaxing. So that also used to come. And then what used to happen that once you leave your office premises, that was a time which was clocked. So you start preparing to leave. So what used to happen was that your productive hours kept going down and down and down. When you start giving privileges to a person, he takes it that it is his right. And slowly, this right came to creep in. Now, every person in that sarkari job used to feel that relaxing, taking a time off for the tea break or taking time for a lunch break was his right. He would not answer the telephone. He would not reply to anybody. And he won't work after those prescribed hours. So slowly, this tendency started creeping in. And fortunately, I must say that we are fortunate to have such a prime minister who has not taken a single day's leave. So he works relentlessly, and I have met those people who have traveled with him. So what he does is he steals time on his flight to relax. And so that when he lands there, he is fresh. So you'll always find a bounce in his walk when he is walking the red carpet as he's being received in any country. And that is why there are, I think, 28 countries who have had the privilege, I must say that, the privilege of awarding him with their national honor. So it is not the honor of our prime minister, it is the honor of that country that they got the chance to honor our prime minister. That is what I feel of him. And he has got a sense of pride in every Indian. I authored an article. When he lands in Zagreb, Croatia, he is greeted by a person there of Indian origin. And that person says, "Thank you, Mr. Modi, you have made us seen." That is a very big statement because we Indians were losing that sheen. People started taking us for granted. After the advent of this man in the scene, the Indian feels that he is being seen. I've got personal examples also. As we keep going ahead, I'll tell you those also. Ji, Sandhya ji.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing out how from the top change is beginning to happen, because I have seen that happen in the Middle East. So in Saudi Arabia, just like you said, there would be a similar thing, an afternoon siesta of 4 hours. And the bahana was that it is very hot to work. And I do agree, if it is outside in the hot sun, it goes up to 48 degrees, and then there would be a mandatory break for all the workers, understandable. But that afternoon break, and then again a 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock office hour was something which became a norm, and the whole day went haywire, right? But then when I moved to Dubai, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed was a taskmaster. His only focus was outcomes. I don't care how you do the job. You do it in 24 hours, you do it in 1 hour. I want the outcome. And you promise something, you deliver it, right? So I think that kind of accountability is something that was grossly missing here. And probably now we have somebody to look up to and emulate within organizations, within various, corporates as well. And as a person from the HR field, where you have seen the length and breadth of training, up to training, okay, from the performance appraisals, probably you had roles. Can you just go into depth from the armed forces perspective, what the corporates in India, because the HR departments are struggling. So I'm coming from being an advisor on a couple of IT firms, where the new gen is asking questions on what is rest, what is family, work-life balance, which I don't think, is a conversation to be had, because in your heydays, you work and you work really diligently and you play hard diligently whenever you get time, right? So can you put it in perspective from the HR in the army? How does it work? What is it that we inculcate so beautifully in our armed forces that that discipline gets deep into us and then we experience the freedom?
Sanjay ji, the beauty in the armed forces lies in the interpersonal connect. Now, what I find is lacking in the corporate world, and please pardon me if I'm using all these words, this is my observation as a common man. The relationship in the corporate world is very transactional. For example, Sandhya ji is my employee. Now, Sandhya ji is supposed to deliver certain things, and she jolly will deliver. If in case she doesn't deliver, so she gets a pink slip. So there is no shade of gray. It's only black or white. Now, in the armed forces, what happens is, if Sandhya ji is my employee, of course, you don't have an employee. We all are answerable to the Rashtrapati, who is the supreme commander of the armed forces. So we all are working towards a cause. And in the army, we use the jargon that is brother officers. So there is a camaraderie between the officers, and the Chetwood Credo, which is inscribed, which is there in the Indian Military Academy, that the honor of the country comes first, foremost, and every time. The welfare of the troops that I command comes next. My own welfare and safety comes last. So that thing is drilled into you. And when you pass out from the hallowed precincts of the Indian Military Academy, although you may be just 22 or 23-year-old, but that thing reverberates in your mind that your country comes first. And I'm so happy to see that every Indian Army officer, he believes in follow me. So when it comes to leading the men, he literally leads. And that is the reason why the officer to men casualty ratio in the Indian Army is the highest in the world. If you compare it to our adversaries, if you look towards the west, we have Pakistan there. Pakistan, although they have come from the same branch, we had the British Army, and the British Army later then divided into India and Pakistan. So we have the same product, but what happens is they have diluted the ethos. They have become an aristocratic army. But not in our country, it is very well known to us that we are supposed to obey the political bosses. So if the Raksha Rajya Mantri says anything or the Raksha Mantri says anything, that is cast in stone. So we never even think of acquiring power or assuming power. So the country comes first is not only there in the mind, it becomes part of our practice. Then comes the second credo, and that is the looking after your men. So your men become your children. At a certain age, I see every officer addressing the Jawan as beta. So that is the beautiful relation. And the officer, he knows how is his wife keeping? Does she have a medical problem? How many children does a Jawan have? How are the children studying? So the company commander knows all 123 men in his company with this detail. So he is not just a company commander, he is part of the family. And once you're part of the family, then following the dictum which is being given to you, the orders which come to you, they percolate very seamlessly into the minds of the people. So you have a very disciplined force working. Now, this is how the army functions. And that is the key that I found was slightly lacking in the corporate world.
So beautifully put. So beautifully put. I do know corporates which really care for employees and their well-being, and there is a culture which is right from the top, from the time the company was founded, it is followed through, right? So I will just reiterate what you just mentioned. So first comes country. So nation first. Second is the company, that is your, you call a company in that or a company in the army, though that comes, your unit is seen as one. Then you have your comrades. And that's what is about the brotherhood or the sisterhood that is practiced within that particular company. You know them not just by name, but also as to what is triggering them, what is it that is taking them away from their work. Is there any distractions that you can probably, at the heart to heart level, right? So this chat is a heart to heart. So that is your heart to heart point. And then you look at yourself. So selfless service has a deeper meaning and it is actually practiced. Now, in the corporate world, now that you retired and you have come out and you're probably training not just the Ministry of External Affairs diplomats, you must be going through with a lot of corporates. And like you said, it's become transactional, mainly because our outcomes are related to our numbers on the stock market or an IPO that has just been launched or your bottom line or your valuations in the company. They have kind of probably, I'm just thinking aloud with you, and I would like your comment on that, as to how is that probably working backwards and impacting the way the management is seeing and executing the day-to-day challenges here in India? Am I thinking right, or do you have a comment on that?
Sanjay, what I feel is that having a personal touch in everything that you do is required. So if in case you're not connecting with the staff, with the other members of the company, if you don't have that connect, you cannot have the desired result. See, after all, we are dealing with humans and humans have emotions. So until unless you touch the emotional chord, you will not get the correct output from a person. For example, if you are the HR in the company and you find that there is one employee who is perpetually late. Now, there is one way is to just punish him, to deduct his salary, or ask him to apply for half day's leave. The other method is to have a chat with him, a heart-to-heart chat. Ki friend, I find that you are late to the office. Is there anything troubling you? The answer will be no at the first go. So you have to make a place for yourself where you are seen as not as a manager, but as a leader. There's a difference between these two. Unfortunately, what has happened in the materialistic world, we all try to become good managers, but somehow we have forgotten to become good leaders. And in the corporate world, there's a requirement to become a leader and not a manager. Because till such time you are dealing with humans, you will have to be a leader. The moment you have all machines, then you manage the machines. So that is the subtle difference. So there's a requirement of a connect with every person. And that personal connect is of paramount importance in the entire life that you lead. You go to the market, if in case you can connect with the vegetable vendor, he will definitely give you the best lot. If you go to the kirana shop, he will tell you, sir, this rice is not meant for you. You pick up this rice. This is good. So that connect, establishing a connect is very important. And how do you establish a connect? When you forget that I am here and the other person is here, there is no difference between the two. If you have a equal footing conversation, then you establish a connect. So that is necessitated. Till such time you're riding the high horse, you cannot see the ground below. So might as well connect to Mother Earth and walk the earth.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you for that nugget. Very important to find a belongingness with fellow human beings at every point in time. Having said that, there are a lot of people who take advantage of your niceness as well. So one needs to be discriminating. And if somebody is late for a consistent period of time, it is not going to change without some intervention. So you can ask in a place like Bangalore, oh my God, without traffic, everybody has this beautiful excuse that I'm late. But, we try to back work and see and plan and prepare so that we are before time and not after, right? So that is in our hand if we want to achieve what we want to achieve. So when you're doing this discussion, there is always a point of criticism and a feedback that will come back to you because you're doing something wrong. So now here is something that I find that basically in Indians, we have this tendency to gloss over the important and try make it look nice, but rather than give a frank feedback, because it's so much more easier to hear it frank and then work on it rather than beat around the bush and tender, you make it tender by heating it up a little and then serving it on the plate. For food, it's okay. I understand you need to soften stuff if somebody's likes and dislikes. But how do the people in the army manage this? And what is this learning that we can bring into the corporate world on? And how do you personally handle criticism and negative feedback?
Okay, ma'am, generally what happens is that you pass an order. So you are bound to obey the order. But if in case you find that the command is not a lawful command, in the armed forces, we have the military law, and there's a word known as the lawful command also. So there may be a chance where your superior is passing an order which is not lawful. So that becomes a punishable offense. So the beauty of the armed forces is that everything is written. You have standard operating procedures which you are expected to follow. You can't deviate from there. But the standard operating procedures are not watertight. They give you that room for ambiguity also. That is the beauty of the armed forces. So I can go on and on and on speaking about the armed forces and what should be done. The moot point is that how do you convey to the person? So the best thing is, if in case you are speaking to somebody, look into his eyes, because that is the most truthful stance that you can follow. And insist that the person looks into your eyes. There the communication window opens. And then you tell them that, friend, you are late. You should not be late, because your being late will harm such and such. So my ultimate goal is being harmed. Make him understand that. And he is also a human being. He will understand that. He may try to give you justification as to why he is late, but then he has got the point that he was late. Now, if in case, God forbid, you have a boss who is giving an unlawful command. So it happens in the armed forces, you scold the subordinate. And once you scold the subordinate and the subordinate knows that I wasn't wrong here, my commanding officer was not feeling quite nice, so he scolded me. So there's a very beautiful form of redressal. The youngster, he walks into the commandant's house in the evening. And it's a family. So when the youngster walks into that house, he speaks to the lady. Ma'am, today I was scolded by so-and-so. So the lady will take the side of the youngster and she'll ask her husband, why did you do that? And the husband will give a justification that this thing happened, so I did it. Now what happens is that now the youngster is listening to the conversation and he understands that, okay, I went wrong here. So there is no ill will which is carried to the house. If in case you are scolded, that scolding remains in the office only. After outside the office, you are just a part of a family. So the beauty is that don't carry any baggage home.
Oh, that is wonderful, wonderful. What a nugget this is to so what I'm hearing or what I'm listening is that somebody has admonished a behavior and not the person. So if that segregation or that maturity can come in the individual who is listening to the criticism, there is growth, right? Otherwise, we are just going to be in the same place where we were yesterday and repeating the same patterns. Colonel Mayank, that was a wonderful response. Can you give a mistake in your career which you did, and what is it that you learned from it? Something small where it makes you more human. Right now, you're right up there, in the audience eyes, where everything is there. But I'm pretty sure there are little things that you would like to share where you made something wrong and makes it easier for the audience to understand how you dealt with it.
Okay, so I was a young captain, 6 or 7 years of service, and I have always been a brat. So I noticed that my commanding officer, now he's a colonel, And the colonel has put in at least 20, 22 years of service. That is the age and difference and the service difference which exists. So I noticed that my commanding officer is very fond of his smoke and he enjoys his rum in the evening. When I mean to say enjoys, he enjoys his 2 pegs of Old Monk rum. So comes 1st of April, and I tell the NCO in the bar that CO Saab has asked for 5 packets of cigarette and 2 bottles of Old Monk rum. So this poor Jawan, he doesn't know that the Captain Saab is playing a prank. So he carries this stuff to the commanding officer's residence. And we are in a field area, so it's a temporary accommodation. So he goes to him and he says, sir, this is it. And the commanding officer, he asks, who told you to get this? He said, Captain Chaubey, he told me that I should get it for you. So the commanding officer, he understands. He says, okay, keep it here on the table and you may leave. Now, he has left. It's a beautiful Sunday. So there is a method in the armed forces that all the orders are written in a book and the book is then shown to the person. So I get the order book that I'm supposed to move to some forward area and I'm supposed to carry certain documents with me and I have to leave immediately. So, okay. So I change into combat dress on a Sunday and the commanding officer had written that please speak to me before you leave. So I collect all the documents, I go to his residence and the commanding officer briefs me that you are supposed to go there and you're supposed to discuss these points. I discuss all the points. I give him a tight salute. And when I'm about to leave, he says, Mayank, hold on. He says, don't forget to carry these 2 bottles of Old Monk and 5 packs of cigarette. I said, sir, was this a prank? So the commanding officer, he laughs and says, idiot, you think that you can play a prank on your commanding officer can't play a prank on you. So you see what happens is, now the beauty in this thing is that my commanding officer, although being that senior, he took the prank so sportingly that he played a counter prank and he made me realize that the boss will always remain the boss.
Nice.
So that is one mistake I would never dare to commit with my senior. And I'm very sure I'm going to share this with my commanding officer that this thing happened. So that was a beauty.
Very nice.
I really cherish that.
Thank you for sharing that. On that note of the commanding officer, so I have always been an entrepreneur, forced entrepreneur, and done things on my own. Because I lived in Saudi Arabia, women couldn't work, women couldn't drive. So what else does a person who's well accomplished and wanting to do stuff in that young age do? So I've always been that. So what you're saying is in the army, you have orders that are followed, right? Somebody orders, you just follow. In today's generation, more and more, the parents are becoming friends with their children. And the children have a lot of say in the house in today's world. I'm just shifting to a family scenario, not a corporate scenario. Probably that will also go into the university and the workplace later. So even if a car has to be bought, the child has a say. Everything there is a say that is there. To what extent do you think are we erring somewhere in this, or is it okay? And is there a boundary where you obey the elders? Because also times are changing a whole lot. The kind of generation that's coming in is very new. Are you in touch with some of the youngsters? Because I think you are also training university students and others in today's world. So what is your message for that entire segment, which is coming into the workplace, coming into the universities, growing up in schools today?
Sandhya ji, I have had the opportunity of interacting with school children, with university students, all walks of life.
Right.
And what you said, the general perception is that the Gen Z won't listen to you. They are giving their own opinion and they will not take responsibility. That is the general opinion which exists in a society. And I was pleasantly surprised when I met a few youngsters. So what happens is that I put across a certain group to be formed, and I leave it to that. Now, what happens is that after the address, they come to me and they come on their own and asking me, sir, you made a mention of this group. How should you form this group? Whom should we contact? What will be our agenda? and whom should we fall back on. Now, Sandhya ji, we generally have a belief that this generation does not shoulder responsibilities. That is not the case. What we generally do as elders, we forget that they have a thinking of their own. What we do is we view the next generation with our own lens. That we have been obeying our parents in such a manner, we expect our children also to be obeying us in that particular fashion. But then they have their own style of obeying you. When they speak with you, the tone and tenor may be different. But within their heart, they know that this generation is supposed to be respected. You are your father, you are a mother. They understand this very well. Now, if you keep beating around that, we used to do that in our days, now we don't do this, naturally, you're going to have issues with you. In the armed forces also, we understand that the new generation is coming from the society. The people who are joining the armed forces, they come from the society, so they cannot be immune from this thought process. So the armed forces carry this with them. In the olden days, there was no room for this discussion. But now, the commanding officer knows that his Jawan will have a mind of his own. So he gives him that leeway. He makes him understand as to why the thing is necessary. And when he understands the issue, then the orders are passed. So the orders are taken in the same spirit which were being taken 50 years earlier. The methodology has changed. The army has tweaked in. So as parents also, we are supposed to tweak in this change and understand that the change may be there in the appearance, but our core remains the same. That is the basic.
Fantastic. I think I'm fully 100% with you. I have my experience, personal experience has been also that though they may not have a view of the past that the parent has gone through, we cannot reflect the parenting style in our times without thinking through the current scenario, the current influences, the current environment in which the youngsters are growing, and say, मैं तो स्कूल जाने के लिए पैदल जाता था 10 किलोमीटर साइकिल चला के, इतनी मेहनत से तुमको तो गाड़ी में छोड़ रहे हैं, फिर भी तुम सुबह उठ नहीं रहे हो. So now a statement like that is quite accusatory, right? And then puts everybody on the back foot. And I think the space you're coming from is that a lot more discussion and convincing is needed because knowledge is out there for all the youngsters. You are not the carrier of knowledge like it was for us from our grandparents or parents. We didn't have the resources available. So they're assimilating the knowledge around already. And then they have assimilated and then telling you. So if we are not keeping pace with that and giving them the freedom to discuss, which I think even in Sanatana Dharma, we have to question everything, right? So if they are questioning and we don't have the patience to answer or we don't know the answer, it is better to say we don't know rather than getting into an argument and the way, So for all this, if there is a mentor in your life, it really helps, right? So other than the parents, we used to have grandparents, chacha, mama, who you could call, or you could say, "Arey, yaar, my mother's not at all listening to this. Can you tell me what to do, how to?" So that is missing, right? In today's society, we are all such nuclear families. So tell me about your mentor. Did you have somebody who would guide you in these kind of times when you had questions? And what was that role of that mentor they played, or mentors? As well. It could also be people who you looked up to, who really you were not in connection with, but somebody you idolized and took you forward.
Sandhya, that reminds me of a couplet, and that is in Hindi. It says that साईं इस संसार में सबसे मिलिए धाय, ना जाने किस रूप में नारायण मिल जाए. The same goes for your mentor also. If in case you have an open mind, you can learn from every person. The person who is sweeping the floor, you can learn from him also. Try picking up that broom and try sweeping it. It's pretty tough. So your hands will give way. So respect that person, because what apparently is a menial job is very important, and you have to value that job also. So you can learn from every person, provided your mental faculties are open. Likewise, mentor you can find not only in parents, grandparents. If in case you are a nuclear society, you're staying away from your grandparents, but then you have your own friend circle. And there would definitely be some friend who is close to your children. So your children can always fall back. So keep that channel of communication open. Let the child communicate. It can be an elder cousin also, a child of a similar age whom he or she shares with. So here I would slightly differ with you that mentors are missing. No, mentors are there. The form of mentorship has changed. The only thing is that. So you give the person that space and the authority to speak with your child. And once the child starts communicating, there are many things that the child won't share with you, but then would share with the other person.
Sure.
So the form has changed. Narayan remains the same. The roop has changed.
Wonderful, wonderful perspective. Thank you, Colonel Chaubey. This I think brings me to a shift in the discussion, drastic shift. But I think we cannot not delve deeper into this area. Is geopolitics. Okay, in today's world, we have spoken about the smaller family, the university, the corporate life, the army, and the personal relations, which is your HR side. But I think your current project is going deeper into the geopolitics. How are the countries behaving with each other? Right? So the leaders and representatives, how are they behaving with each other? And the world is watching on a minute to minute basis today, which was not the case before. We would wait at least 24 hours to see the newspaper in the past. But here you speak something today, like how Colonel Mayank Chaubey and Sandhya Prakash are talking today. Tomorrow, there will be a lot of people seeing this who will watch, who will comment, who will have an opinion, and same way country. So how has the geopolitics today, and what do you see in future, how it is going to evolve, and the pace at which this evolution will come?
Sandhya, earlier the leaders used to speak, the press used to listen, and the press used to communicate with the people. Now, what has happened is, in this era of social media and internet, which is facilitating social media, the leader necessarily does not require a press to be there. You and I, with a camera, now as we are communicating, the leaders can also communicate with the common man in a similar fashion. Like we have Modi ki Man ki Baat. So what he's doing is, he has removed that element of press.
Right.
There is no interlocutor.
Right.
He speaks directly with the common man. And the common man can always communicate with the Prime Minister directly. So what has happened that there is we used to play a game known as Chinese whisper in our young days, if you recollect.
Correct.
So you used to whisper something in the other person's ear, and when it used to go to the 10th person, the total language and connotation used to change. Probably that was happening in the early days. And the press were also playing merry hell. They were writing at will.
Right.
They had their own likings and dislikings, and they used to project the person in their man. Now what has happened is that wall has gone away.
Correct.
The wall could have been used as a shield, or you could have scaled the wall and risen to new heights. Both the things have now gone away. So now the leaders are in the glare of the public. They are being scrutinized 24/7. You have cameras. Every person is a journalist. He's carrying a mobile phone with which he can record anything or he can shoot anything. So he is carrying a form of evidence with him. So now the politicians will have to speak to the public directly. And that has changed. So now what has done is they have become answerable to the public. Whatever they do is seen by the public. They are being scrutinized 24/7. So they don't have that, okay, I was misquoted by the press. Sorry, that thing has gone. The speed of communication is in milliseconds. There's an important bilateral going on. And you have one joint secretary sitting in that room who will tweet a photograph, which will show the hand gesture showing that the meeting is not going in a cordial fashion. And he'll say, oh, something going wrong. And that is communicated to the world in seconds. Like I have friends, of course, by virtue of my serving with the Foreign Service Institute, I have a friend in virtually every country. And my friend is sitting in the General Assembly. At least one friend is always there. So I get online photographs as the Prime Minister walks into to deliver the address. Mr. Chaubey, Mr. Modi has arrived. He is now moving towards the podium. Here he starts his speech. Now I get online photograph. This is what is happening nowadays. So everything is transparent. Everything is open to you. The politicians are now answerable to the public. So you don't have a leeway to hide behind any wall. And that is a very good sign. I really like that. Now, what happens is that you are speaking to the public directly and there is no holds bar. So that thing has drastically changed. The narrative has changed. The politicians, they make or they break the narrative themselves. And yes, of course, there are people like you and me who speak on the various channels and we discuss threadbare as to what he spoke and what was the meaning behind that word. But now things have changed drastically, and I find that this is a good sign. We are progressing.
Very good, very good. Colonel Chaubey, so you have very crisply pointed out the benefits of transparency, right? So when you have something in between two people, like the Chinese whispers, which you aptly referred to, there is a certain deflection or possibility of bias creeping in, possibility of also some kind of thought process which you are going through to be influencing what is being transmitted. Your English and the language biases is also removed, because I may say something in Hindi and मैं जो बोल रही हूँ वो emphasis के हिसाब से अलग sound कर सकता है, and if I say the same thing in English it may not mean even the same thing, right? So language is again another great barrier that has been removed. हिंदी अभी कोई भी बोलता है अभी मतलब proudly हिंदी, तो आप भी I understand you grew up in Agra. तो थोड़ा, or you lived in Agra for some time, UP. I have been there in Narora for quite some time. तो थोड़ा पीछे जाके ये language and the communication in that, have you faced that also? If you can combine that and tell me, what current projects you are working on, and how you plan to take that, anything that you want the audience to understand from that. But a little brief on the life of growing up, a young Mayank, or who is now Colonel Mayank Chaubey, but the young Mayank, how did you deal with that? Because I understand your father was also from the armed forces. So a little bit about that, UP, and then what is your current project?
Okay. So I take pride in being an Indian, and I am really proud of that. And that I make it very evident whenever I speak. So I say that in Sanatan, आप मोक्ष की ओर जाने का प्रयास करते हैं, परंतु यदि ईश्वर ने ऐसा चाहा कि आपको पुनर्जन्म लेना पड़ेगा, तो मैं ईश्वर से यही प्रार्थना करूंगा कि अगले जन्म में मैं मयंक चौबे बनकर ही जन्म लूं, क्योंकि मुझे अपनी मातृभूमि से अथाह स्नेह है। मैं सपने में भी नहीं सोच सकता कि मां भारती की गोद को छोड़कर मैं किसी और देश का वासी बन भी सकता हूं। आई विल बी अ टोटल मिसफिट। सो for my own sake, for my own interest, I feel that I should be born in this country. And if I'm born in this country, I should proudly carry its cultural heritage. So, मोदी जी बोलते हैं कि आपका सीना 56 इंच का है। मैं कहता हूं कि नहीं, भारतवासी का सीना 56 नहीं, 58 या 60 इंच का है, क्योंकि हमारे पास में वो धरोहर है जिसको शायद हम पहचानने में अक्षम है। मेरा उद्देश्य आजकल जीवन में यह है कि इस धरोहर को मैं परोस कर उन बच्चों के सामने प्रस्तुत कर सकूं और वो अपनी धरोहर पर नाज करें, उन्हें गर्व महसूस हो कि हम मां भारती की गोद में पैदा हुए हैं और हमारा पालन पोषण जो है वो ये पावन भूमि कर रही है। सो दैट इज माई एम, टू इंस्टिल दैट कॉन्फिडेंस इन द यंगर जनरेशन। There has been a lot of negative publicity of Operation Sindoor, if you would have seen. People question the armed forces. So it really hurts that this is not the way the narrative is supposed to be carried. So my aim is to clear the cobwebs, bring it to the fore what actually happened, and then instill that belief that the Prime Minister says that we have to be Vishwaguru. I am of the belief that we are already the Vishwaguru. The only thing is that the dust has to be cleared. We are supposed to realize that we are the Vishwaguru. The day we
कैसे कर रहे हैं वो? How are you planning to communicate that and do that on a day-to-day basis?
Okay. So I give the example of our own navigation system, that is Navik. As you know, Navik system employs 4 satellites, all indigenously built.
Right.
These 4 satellites are now pointing towards our own country.
Right.
They map the entire length and breadth of our country.
Right.
The GPS, the satellite is located at an oblique angle.
Right.
So when this satellite takes the image of my country, the oblique line is going to have a deviation.
Right.
It is bound to have. These 4 satellites, which are right on top, will give me a pinpoint location. So my Navik will always be better than the GPS. That is my belief. And we proved that in Operation Sindoor. Why? Because the missile that we produce, BrahMos, was so accurate that it can travel 500 kilometers, but when it falls on ground, on the target, it can miss the target only by half a meter.
Okay.
500 kilometers and just half a meter error. I proudly say that you give me a target and my missile will more often than not hit that target, even if it travels 500 kilometers. Now keep the weather forecast, weather conditions in mind. If you remember, there was a building known as Markaz Subhanallah, which was a terrorist hideout. Now the weakest portion in a building is the dome. In the picture, you see that there are 4 domes in that building. 3 domes have been punctured and the projectile goes inside. That is the accuracy. So when I fire the missile, I aim towards the dome and it punctures the 3 domes. That is the accuracy with which the Atmanirbhar Bharat works on.
Sure.
So when you listen to the ISRO chief, he says that there were 10 satellites which were utilized in Operation Sindoor. 4 of them were Navik. The rest all were doing something else. And that is the result that we achieved. Yeah. So when you understand that this is the accuracy with which you can take down the enemy, you feel proud. And that our own scientists have produced. That is the beauty of Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Lovely, lovely. Colonel Mayank, information is king, right? So when you have the ability to be leaders in the world for information, and now more and more people are also thinking of coming back to Bharat and contributing everything in our country, because we have a need, we have the market, we have the ability. It is just that we did not invest in ourselves and manufacturing as much. We did not we kind of were attracted to go abroad at that time because the opportunities were not perceived as enough in research, in research and development, and so many other things. But people are coming back, and the time is so right to come back and build a Bharat of our dreams, which we grew up. So we went to Atomic Energy Central School. I think you have studied in Kendriya Vidyalaya. Rose morning ke prayer mein jo gana gaya, the kind of patriotism with which we came out every single day. Wo, a lot of looking at the activities that has happened in the politics, in the thing, there is a corruption kind of mindset. But jo wo positivity hai on many, many people, not just you, Colonel Mayank. We have met so many people, and I'm sure you're also seeing that wo jo cobwebs hai, nikal rahe hain logon ke mind se, bolte rehna padega, jo bol rahe hain wo sahi hai. Ye, how do you stay motivated to do that? क्योंकि क्या है, 4 लोग की पार्टी में जाओ, 4 लोग कुछ और बोलेंगे, 4 लोग कुछ और बोलेंगे, from the past. How do you stay motivated and up ahead to argue your point or just listen and walk away? What would you suggest? Because more and more, there are still people who are naysayers, and that is going to continue. We are going to have people. You can't run away from that. So what is your suggestion? How do you personally stay motivated and continue to motivate everybody else in the work that you do?
Sandhya ji, the most important thing is know yourself. When I say know yourself as a person, know yourself as a Bharatvasi. And once you realize what wealth you have, that will make you feel proud automatically. So that motivation, you don't have to get it from somewhere. It will automatically come into you. The more you study yourself, when I say yourself, means you yourself and the country as such. The more you study yourself, the more motivated you get. And the more motivated you get, the more you start studying. So it's a chain reaction. You have studied in Narora. You understand chain reaction very well.
Bilkul.
So I don't have to motivate myself.
Right.
So that motivation is a chain reaction resulting, and there is no boron carbide to dampen that.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. And this kind of nation first motivation जो है, I think I'm seeing it more and more sitting in the Silicon Valley of India in Bangalore. The entrepreneurship bug has bitten. Parents are allowing children to experiment and do what they want to do, which is all fantastic signs. And I think we are coming towards the close of our talk at Zena Family. And I just want to शेयर विद यू. कल रात को बस ऐसे ही माय हस्बैंड पुट ऑन द मूवी स्वदेश. ठीक है, बहुत दिनों बाद आई वाज लाइक, ओ माय गॉड, ही इज वाचिंग समथिंग दैट इज वेरी वेरी क्लोज टू आवर हार्ट. तो उसमें ये बंदा शाहरुख कम्स इनटू द विलेज द फर्स्ट टाइम टू मीट हिज नैनी मदर. ही कम्स इन दिस आरवी व्हीकल. ठीक है, तो वहां पे गांव में कहाँ पे बेड होगा, इट विल बी सो इनकन्वीनियंट. ही हायर्स फ्रॉम दिल्ली an RV, so that he can come and sleep in that. And it's like a new thing in the village, right? So that exactly talks about the perception with which people come. This is the country I left behind. But then slowly he starts sleeping in the room, and then it's fine. It takes that time. So I want you to close with this. Brain drain is what happened in.
I think there's a signal loss here. Sandhya ji is out of the scene.
So I was talking about the Swades, and the brain drain happened in the 90s, where we lost a lot. ये अभी time है brain gain का, कि वो जो लोग गए हैं वापस, समय एक cyclical thing है ना, तो things go around. It is time to come back. And can you give one piece of advice to those people sitting abroad with so much knowledge and they can help the country? Of course, their children may be more comfortable in those states. तो कल वो गाना भी चल रहा था, ये जो देश है तेरा स्वदेश है तेरा, तुझे है पुकारा, ये जो बंधन है वो कभी टूट नहीं सकता. तो ये बंधन जो है, इसको कैसे प्रेजेंट करें, कि या फिर बस वी जस्ट वेट एंड थिंग्स विल हैपन?
That's a beautiful question, Sandhya. Now the thing is that you cannot snap the umbilical cord. So that bandhan will always remain there. The only error that we committed was we started speaking of brain drain. So what we did was that we alienated those people who had moved on outside. They would have moved because of our folly, because we could not provide them with the opportunity that they really deserved. So they found that opportunity somewhere else, and they become contributors in that society. But it's not easy to snap that umbilical cord. The blue passport that you hold, भारत गणना जो लिखा होता है जिसके ऊपर, उसको सरेंडर करना इतना आसान नहीं होता है. Spoken to so many.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल.
Yes. So it is very difficult. I think it is next to impossible to forget your motherland from where you come from. So what is happening is now we have said that you are an asset to your country. You are the true ambassadors of Bharat. So once you have that feeling that I am representing my country from where I come from, फिर वो अपना chin up करके he feels that okay, now I will have to do those things which I'm expected to do. And no action of mine should be in a fashion where I have to look down and a person would point out a finger and say that you are so and so, that is why you did this. So you start working with a new vigor, a new sense of responsibility. And then what happens is, even though you may be staying out when I say beyond the geographical boundaries of this country, now it's a global village. You still are a part of our country and you're representing Ma Bharti, their city. So the change has already begun. People have started to understand that, yes, my roots are here. I can't sever those roots because the tree may be huge, but the moment you sever the roots, the tree might fall. So nobody would sever those roots. What now we have done is we have started watering those roots systematically.
Nice.
And the tree is now growing.
Fantastic. There can't be a better end to our conversation, Colonel Mayank Chaubey. It's been a complete pleasure knowing you, gathering those nuggets from you little by little by little over the past 1 hour. Gati Shakti jo aaj ki hai, uske even though age is a number according to me, तो उस गति शक्ति के साथ हर किसी को जुड़ना है. And with that speed, if we go, but with the process in mind, with the purpose in mind, with the passion in mind, if we progress one after the other, हमारी क्या ड्यूटी है, हमारी क्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, वो पर्सपेक्टिव से जैसे जैसे लोग सोचने लगेंगे, there is no way we will not find true independence in the 100th year of our true independence. तो जय हिंद, जय माँ भारती, जय माँ गंगे. And I hope we all flow like the water of the Ganges in pure divinity and keep removing the cobwebs from our life. I'm just summarizing everything in whatever you said. Okay, remove the cobwebs from our lives, and also the layers which we created in front of our eyes, वो थोड़ा निकाल के clearly देखें कि क्या हो रहा है ground में, deal with real people. So thank you very much. One last nugget or sentence you want to say bye to all the viewers of Sena family and also those who are watching this heart-to-heart show. It's been a complete pleasure for me personally, who I have grown in the last 1 hour as well. So something to close the show, and then we'll take say adieu.
संध्या जी, जेना फैमिली के सदस्यों को कुछ कहना सूरज को चिराग दिखाने के बराबर होगा. और यदि आप समझते हैं कि सूरज जो है वो अपने पूरे शक्ति के साथ में इस समय दृष्टिगोचर नहीं हो रहा है, तो हो सकता है सूरज के सामने कोई बादल आ गए. समय है, बादल छट जाएंगे, सूरज पुनः आपको दीप्तिमान दिखाई देगा. ऐसी मेरी अनुकंपा है, आशा है, विश्वास है. और सूरज को कोई छुपा नहीं सकता हमेशा के लिए. कभी ना कभी अपनी रोशनी जरूर बिखेरता है. किरणें उसकी हमेशा धरती की ओर ट्रैवल करेंगी. सो इतना प्यारा परिवार है ये, और इस परिवार के जो मुखिया हैं उनको मेरा प्रणाम. और जिस प्रकार से ये एक एक मोती उन्होंने छांट कर रखा है, बड़ी सुंदर माला जो है वो बन रही है और हर रोज एक नया मोती हमको देखने को मिलता है. तो ये माँ भारती के लिए शोभायमान है और बहुत सुंदर बनता है. और मैं कुछ इसके ज्यादा कुछ कह नहीं पाऊंगा. इट्स अ वेरी हम्बलिंग एक्सपीरियंस स्पीकिंग विद यू and being part of this family. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much. Jai Hind. Namaskar.